telling you a little bit about a speaker. I had an opportunity to meet Dan several months ago, and I was so moved by his speech and had a chance to read some of the excerpts from his book. And I'm just really honored that he's here with us today, and I hope that each and every one of you will be touched and really feel the message that his book relays. I want to tell you a little bit about Mr. Castro. He is an attorney and partner at the law firm of Castro and Baker here in Austin, Texas. And he has the honors graduate from the University of Texas School of Law. And he spent the last 25 years mentoring teenagers and law students. So with that, I want to ask you to give a big warm welcome to Mr. Dan Castro.
Before we start, I'd like to ask all of the adults in the room to try to move forward and join the rest of the crowd here. You're part of the family, you know. Well, squeeze in. I want to ask everybody to squeeze in. It's going to be a little bit tight, but. Everybody squeeze in. Come on.
I like my chair back there.
I'm a lawyer by trade, so I'm nervous when people are standing behind me. Well, hey, thanks for coming out on a Saturday. How many of you did not want to get out of bed this morning? Yeah, me neither. But here we are, okay? And I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys. I don't know a whole lot about the program that you guys are involved in, but I do know that IBM has done a tremendous amount to get you guys to where you are, because you are the select few that have been invited and have been touched by some very special people around you, and you'll be lifted up above all the people that you know and hopefully pushed or maybe inspired to go to the next level. Nadika's right. I mean, some of you will go on to be doing programming work for NASA. Can you imagine that? I mean, what an amazing feat. I've been in Phoenix all week, and I've been taking depositions, which is basically a sworn statement of computer programmers, and, you know, I can't even understand what the heck they're saying, you know, much less
Really?
do it. Or, you know, like, what does that mean, you know? Like, where's that in the book, you know? They speak their own language, and they even have their own set of encyclopedias now on the internet, because it's constantly evolving and changing. It's called the Wikipedia. Anybody heard about that? Because it's changing so fast. They make up words nobody's even heard of before, and they all know what it means but us, you know? So anyway, some of you people are going to be in that category, and some of you may go on to change your world. Maybe not the whole world, but start with changing your world, where you are. So to start with, I'd like to ask, how many of you know right now what you want to be when you grow up? If you do, raise your hands. Wow, I'm surprised. Okay, how many of you know somebody else who already knows at this age what they want to be when they grow up? See, that's amazing. It's amazing to me. I used to hate those people. You know, I mean, when I was in high school, I mean, like, what? You know, I have a friend who, when she was 12 years old, she already knew she wanted to be a lawyer. When she was 12, I didn't even know what a lawyer was when I was 12. You know, much less what they do or whether I wanted to be one. I grew up on the south side of San Antonio in the Barrio, and when I was 14 years old, I remember my dad saying, "Son, we're moving to the rich people part of town." You know, like, the rich people part of town, what's that? I thought everybody lived like we did, you know. I mean, all I knew was the neighborhood that we lived in. That was the whole world, you know. But when we moved to the rich people part of town, you know, we got there and I was like, wow, the houses are so big, and the cars, they're so shiny, you know. And, you know, when I go back to visit my old neighborhood now, the houses look a lot smaller than they did back then. And a lot of those cars are now on blocks and driveways.
Yeah.
You know? But it's okay because they make up for it by decorating their yards, you know. They take these old tires and they put cactus in them, you know. And that's how they decorate their yards. And there's pink flamingos sometimes in the yards too. So, yeah, man.
I have flamingos.
You got one of those? Yeah. There you go.
Block his house.
It reminds us of our roots, right, in Mexico. Anyway. When I remember those times, my mom still lives there, and when I remember those times, I remember struggling with what I wanted to be when I grew up. And when I became an adult, well, actually, when I got taller, you know. My kids say, I'm not sure you're really grown up, Dad, you know. But so when I got taller, I did about 10 years worth of research into the lives of people who overcame extreme obstacles. Because I wanted to know if those people were following any kind of a pattern that could help explain their success. And after doing 10 years of research, I concluded that there's definitely a pattern. And the pattern is both observable and explainable. So I put the best of the best stories together in a book called Critical Choices That Change Lives, so that other people could see the same patterns that I saw. You see, these people throughout history have left us a trail of breadcrumbs to follow. I call it the hero's path. And for the next few minutes, I'd like to invite you to walk with me down the hero's path and pick up a few of those breadcrumbs. I believe there's 4 primary ways that heroes throughout history have identified their passion in life. The first way is sometimes they receive a calling from within. There's a guy by the name of Abraham Maslow. He's a famous psychologist, and he spent his life studying what it takes for people to be truly satisfied and fulfilled and happy in life. And he said the thing that you have to do more than anything else is that which is consistent with yourself. And he said these words. He said, a musician must make music. An artist must paint. A poet must write if he is to be ultimately at peace with himself. And so Abraham Maslow suggests the first place you should look when trying to identify your passion is within. And some heroes in history have been lucky enough to find that calling from within. In the 1960s, there was a little Hispanic kid living in East Los Angeles. He'd been abandoned by his mother and then also by his father. So he's being raised by an abusive and resentful grandmother and an alcoholic grandfather. And they were very poor, and they abused him emotionally, and they told him he was ugly and stupid, and he would never amount to anything. The kid was pretty miserable, as you can imagine. So to escape his misery, what he would do is he would come home after school and watch comedy on TV. And that's how he escaped. And his favorite show was a show called Chico and the Man. The adults in the group know the show, probably. Kids like, what? Chico and the who? Anyway, it was the first television show in American history where a Latino was the star of the show. A guy by the name of Freddie Prinze. And so this kid would come home every day and watch Chico and the Man, and Freddie Prinze was his idol. He became his hero. And he hung a big giant poster of Freddie Prinze on the wall, and he stared at the poster every night when he went to sleep. And one night when he was 17 years old, he was laying there staring at Freddie, and he said, wait a minute. I can do that. I can be funny. I can make people laugh. And he sat up and he scribbled down some words on a piece of paper. He said, one day, I will make America laugh. I will hit America like a hammer, and I will be the best. Now keep in mind, at that point, there was no evidence to support those statements at all. Keep in mind, at that moment, he'd never done stand-up comedy in his whole life. Keep in mind, at that moment, everybody around him was telling him he was ugly and stupid and would never amount to anything. But in the years that followed, he did go on the comedy circuit, started doing stand-up comedy. But he bombed in club after club after club. And he actually had to quit the comedy circuit for 5 years to do manual labor to support himself. But he came back, and he kept coming back, and finally, one day, he had his own primetime television show called The George Lopez Show. Anybody ever watch that show? Yeah. Yeah, ran for 5 years. And the cool part is the beginning of every show started with his own personal favorite rock and roll song by ZZ Top. Can you imagine having your own show and getting to pick all the music for the show? It's an amazing story. Well, how did he do that?